it is my great pleasure to invite the wonderful Nergiz Kern to join me on the camera. And while she gets herself up on stage, I'm going to introduce her a little to you. So Nergiz Kern is the co-author of A to Z of Immersive Language Learning and Teaching in Virtual Reality. She's an EdTech specialist and a language specialist with 25 years of experience in language teaching. Her expertise spans general English, English for specific purposes, English for academic purposes, both in person and online. She specializes in emerging technologies for learning. Her experience with immersive technologies dates back to 2008. And additionally, she holds an executive leadership and business experience in the language education and tech fields. Nergiz is also a qualified transformational futurist, which I would love to pick your brains about. But today she is here to talk to us about inclusive virtual reality in education beyond the headset. Nergiz, welcome. How are you?
Hi, welcome, Charlotte. I'm good. How are you?
I am good, and I'm very much looking forward to your talk. So I will leave you to it.
Thanks so much, and thanks. I appreciate your introduction. I wish you could stay with me on stage. It would make it more fun, maybe. But I'll get started. Hello, everyone. I see lots of people from all around the world. Good to have you here. I'm actually glad that you decided to join this session, because some educators, when they hear it's about VR, the talk, they say, it's not for me. I can't use that in my class or with my students or school anyway. So my main aim with this talk is actually to change that perception. So stay with me. Why this is important to me is because, like many of you, I'm also a language learner. I don't say I was, because I think we always, we keep learning, right? So, I have struggled a lot as a language learner, and many of my students struggle as well. And VR has some unique ways in which we can help our learners with their language learning. So with this said, I actually want to start with a couple of questions. So my first question to you is, what image would you use to describe VR? So you might have seen, even if you haven't used it, you might have seen articles or social media posts or videos about virtual reality. So what kind of image is it that you see? Let's see whether anybody wants to say anything. So I can still see some introductions. Hello, hello. So I'll let you think a little bit. This is going very fast, the chat. So I'll just wait a little bit more to see if we can get any answers. Goggles, okay, big goggles, immersive learning, robots, Unreal VR glasses, many VR glasses, headsets, game VR glasses. Yes, thank you. So maybe it is something like this. Yeah, so many people, when they hear virtual reality, this is the image that they think of, because this is how you will often see it shown in various media. My next question is, who has used a VR headset before? So let's see how many people we have who have used VR. Or maybe you could just say yes or no. It would have been an easier way to ask. Yeah, have you used a VR headset before? Yes or no. I think that's much easier to see. Never, 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 no, 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 no. Yes, I caught a couple of yeses. So, okay. So there are a couple of yeses. Don't worry if you haven't, but if you have, my next question is for those who have, and the others can just think along and guess. So how would you describe the experience when you put on the headset? Maybe you remember the first time. You could think of adjectives maybe, yeah? This is what we often ask our students, so it doesn't need to be whole sentences. Can you describe it briefly with some adjectives? Let's see, only in art exhibitions. Okay, in art exhibitions, it doesn't matter whether you have used it often or not, but if you have any experience, entertaining, okay. Other adjectives, I hope I can catch them. Frightening, great, awesome, exciting. This would be a wonderful language lesson, wouldn't it? Funny, awesome, exciting, interesting, uncomfortable. Wow. Okay, so your reaction was, well, parallel universe, amazing, awkward, weird, but a lot of fun. Okay, wonderful, unsure, immersive, great. I love these. When we use new technology, we often talk about the novelty effect. And when you read research about virtual reality, you will read about this a lot. So the novelty effect, I have, for example, at the moment, also for me, big marker is a new environment. So when we use a tool for the first time, our reactions are often different from after when we get used to it. So usually it is this, yes, wow, or it's fun, it's amazing, it's motivating, and it's physically engaging, and all the other things that you have listed. I have some other interesting ones here. Yeah, fun. It's play-like, game-like. It's interactive. It's physically engaging, which means you use your body to move within the virtual world, your physical body. But the novelty effect can also be negative. And I've seen actually some overwhelming, yeah, dizziness, unreal. There was something else earlier, I can't remember it right now, unusual, weird. Yeah, so some of the negative reactions could be, meh, it's boring. And usually people who are used to video games, they find it boring sometimes because there is the graphics, the visuals are not as realistic, not as high quality intentionally as they are in video games. For some people, it can be distracting because there can be lots going on. And if you take students for the first time, don't expect to be able to follow your lesson plan timing because they will first want to play. It can be difficult to use, disappointing. I'm just seeing here, yeah, surprising. Dizziness is another thing. Yeah, it might make you feel dizzy. We'll come to that in a moment. Disorienting, good, okay. Yeah, difficult, for example, yeah, as you can see on the image or here, you use these controllers to interact with the virtual environment. And if you look here, I don't know if you can see that, but there are 3 buttons, and then there's even a joystick here, a small joystick, and you also have this trigger here. And interestingly, as if this isn't enough, on the other one, you have the same number of buttons, but they have different numbers, different letters, which means you can do different things with them. So you have to learn to use these controllers whilst not seeing anything. So it can be both. Now, forget about the positive effects at the moment. I know it's a weird thing if you give a talk about virtual reality and then talk most of the time, perhaps even, or at the beginning about negative things. But I'm going to go more into the downsides of it, which I can see now mentioned actually even in chat. So what are some other issues related to virtual headsets? And I can see a lot unbalanced, disorienting, dizziness and nausea. I have seen a lot mentioned. Yes, so let's have a look. We have there are health and physical safety issues. Health is one of the most known impacts is actually nausea and dizziness, that you feel. You can, in certain experiences, not all the time, feel sick or dizzy. And then physical safety, because you can't see your real environment, your physical environment, the room. You might have seen maybe videos on YouTube where people trip and fall over, or you might hit your arm against something in the room because you haven't set your boundaries correctly. We have also accessibility issues. Maybe if you can think of some, you can keep writing. For people with certain disabilities, like hearing impairment or visual impairment, it can be difficult. Although I have to add that many people with these issues still use VR headsets and also enjoy them. But it can be a problem if you're in the classroom with your students, depending on what you want to do with them. But there can be other accessibility issues, for example, because of the internet connection, so technical issues that you might have. And then there are privacy and interpersonal safety issues. Privacy, on the internet, you already know there a lot of data is collected. But in virtual reality, it goes even further. If you look at the image, the VR headset has cameras, external cameras, and these scan your room, your environment, and also they track your body movement. And through this, they can actually very easily get a lot of information about your age, your gender, how healthy you are, and many other characteristics that help them identify you, and then which could then be used to target you with advertisement. And then there are also interpersonal safety issues. Some mention headaches also for health. Interpersonal safety is when you are in a virtual world where there are other people and it's a public space. Just like in the physical world, you can meet other people, which can be great for language learners, right? But not everybody is nice. So you can also meet people who don't have who are not there for good reasons. Let's say, there could be harassment, scams going on. So you wouldn't let your learners, especially if they are young, run around in virtual reality on their own. Affordability and availability. These VR headsets, they have come down in price a lot, but they still cost a couple of hundreds of dollars, or pounds. But that is still very expensive for many teachers or schools, especially if you're thinking of getting a class set, right, for the school. And then there are also availability issues. For example, I'm based in Turkey most of the time, and in Turkey we do have access. We can buy VR headsets, but the new versions usually arrive later, and technology is generally a lot more expensive, the same devices, than they are in the US, UK, or Europe, for example. There are a lot. I could talk just about these issues and some others a lot longer, but I will, of course, move on. But at the end of the talk, you will be able to download an extract from the book about the entry about health and physical safety, because I think that's important. So think how funny. Yeah, some people also, somebody mentions here living in a parallel world. Yeah, some people get addicted to this technology as well. So VR is an amazing technology. It's a lot of fun. It can be motivating, and it can even be more accessible for some learners, especially some learners with special needs. And those who sometimes struggle in the classroom can, you can make learning more accessible for them with special VR programs. But in general, it hinders the widespread use of VR, making it an exclusive technology. So what does that mean for us? Should we just forget about virtual reality and not use it with our classes? Fortunately, we have other options. We don't depend on the headset exclusively for virtual reality. You can experience virtual reality in other ways. First of all, a different type of VR headset. Yeah, it's still a headset, but a different type. Maybe some of you recognize this. If you do, let me know in the chat. I think this was introduced in 2012 or so, many years ago, by Google, because they wanted more teachers, and also not just teachers, but anyone else to use virtual reality. I've seen virtual lenses. Fade. Interesting. Okay, so this is Google Cardboard, and it's basically the same thing as the other VR headset, just cheaper. Yeah, cheaper material, cardboard, cheaper lenses, no controllers. And then what you do is, instead of the screen that is included, oops, didn't want to do that, you insert your smartphone. So if your students already have smartphones, then you could use a cheap headset like this that would resolve the affordability issue, for example. There are also no external cameras and no body tracking, so you wouldn't have that problem with the privacy issues. And a couple of other issues you can resolve with this, yeah? Then there is something in between these. There are cheaper headsets that are made of plastic. They're more expensive than the Google Cardboard. And some of them do have controllers or a remote control at least, but they still don't have external cameras. They don't track, so they're more affordable. So there is a range of headsets, let's say, and with some of them you can resolve some of the issues we talked about. It's even possible on some of them to have to experience virtual reality offline. Sometimes they're preloaded with content and you don't need the internet. But it doesn't resolve all the issues we have. Fortunately, we also can use computers, tablets, and to a certain degree also phones. Phones, yeah, the smallest ones are perhaps, I have a small one, that's perhaps not ideal, but if you have a tablet or laptop or a desktop computer, you can use these as well. Now, some people ask then, well, is this really VR? Yeah, if I experience virtual reality on a flat screen rather than the headset, does it count as VR? Okay, there are some people who say no, VR is only with the headset. Yeah. Okay, so to answer this question, we want to look at what the main feature is of VR. So I'll give you some time again. Now, VR has different special features, but we can narrow it down to just one word. One word, one feature that makes VR so special. I'm going to give you some time to see if anyone has an idea or has any other suggestions. And you can use it. Can go ahead. Okay, let me see. Give you a little bit of time. So, what is a positive word now? Yeah, I'm looking for a noun or an adjective. That is the main feature of virtual reality, which is why it creates this wow effect amongst other things. So we have discussions about the different benefits still and expenses. So let me...
Nergiz, your
Yeah.
chat box may have got stuck.
No,
Try pulling the... Is it still jumping in front of you?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
jumping, but it's a bit delayed. So I'm just going to move on. Maybe people just like to discuss still the different types of VR. So I'm going to move on. Let me see. Good. Immerse. I've seen it. I was waiting for that. Thank you, whoever that was. Paloma and Joanne, a couple of other people. Yeah. Interactive. I also hear. I've also seen more immersion. Immerse. Yes, that's the word I was after. Interaction is also correct. It's another feature, but if you really want to narrow it down to one word, it's immersion. So I will let me go back. The technical definition of immersion is quite complicated, and I don't want to go into that. I will give you a very, very simple definition of immersion, a practical one if you want, or an illustration of it. And so what is immersion? For those of you who haven't experienced it, instead of just watching a film or a cartoon, I have that word missing here. So instead of just watching passively a film or a cartoon, you are in the action, you're in the film, you're one of the characters. And not only that, you also have agency. That means you can interact with the environment, with objects in the environment, and change the story. I don't know whether you've ever dreamt of that or were disappointed sometimes about a film and said, I wish the ending was different. So in VR, you're part of the story. Experts use some other words to describe the different types of devices for VR. They often talk about non-immersive VR or low immersion VR, and then immersive VR or high immersion VR. So they say that tablets and computer screens are non-immersive or low immersion VR, and the headset, the proper headset, is high immersion VR or immersive VR, and some of the cheaper headsets would be somewhere in between. But is that really the case? Yeah, is a computer screen really just low immersion, and is a headset high immersion? Fortunately, at least experts tell us that there are different VR experiences. So that's the positive thing about this distinction. It doesn't say VR is only the headset, but it tells us that there are different ways to experience VR, except that some are not as immersive as the others. So we'll have a look whether this is actually true. And now for us teachers, we are interested in the outcome also. So if we use these devices with our learners to have virtual reality experiences, we do it because we want them to learn languages better, faster, right? So if you look at research, it shows us actually that the outcomes, the learning gains, are comparable between the devices. There have been several studies on this, but the latest one I included here by Kaplan-Rakowski and Thresher is from this year, and they use the same platform, and some students access the platform with a VR headset and others used the desktop, and they have the same lesson content, the same input basically. So the outcomes were comparable. There wasn't much of a difference. There was a little bit of a difference where the headset was better. It was in long-term retention. So when they tested students immediately, there wasn't much of a difference. But after a longer period of time, those who used the headset to learn vocabulary, for example, they were a little bit better, but it wasn't a big difference. So if that's the case, then what makes virtual reality immersive? So if it's not the devices, what is it? Or if it's not just the devices, what is it? And there has been a lot of research, which I will go into. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk in detail about research, but just a framework in a moment. But just to reiterate, so the narrow definition of immersion focuses on the technology. It's sensory immersion, which means that you put on the headset and it changes your perception, your senses, what you see, what you hear. Yeah, you're taken away from your physical environment and you can see a virtual environment or an environment that is somewhere else if it's a real video. Hearing, we talk about spatial audio in VR. Just like in real life, in the physical world, when somebody is closer to you or an object that makes a sound is closer to your avatar in VR, you hear it louder. And if it's further away, you hear it less, which is what you would expect, right? Touching is also possible, yeah, with these controllers. When you touch something in virtual reality with your virtual hand, this will vibrate, so you can feel it. It gives you some feedback. And there are even, not with the headsets we might buy, but there are also gloves that you can wear where the touching is even more realistic. And there is even VR where you can smell the virtual food or anything else that you're experiencing in VR. I put those in brackets though, because it's not something that we will, it's unlikely that we will have headsets with that technology in our classrooms. In any case, all of this is achieved through technology. This is an incomplete view of immersion. It's exclusive, not helpful for us as educators. So we want an expanded definition of immersion that includes all the other devices, which is achieved through a combination of different factors, not just the technological factors. And this view is more complete, it's inclusive, and it's more helpful for us as educators who want to use VR with their students. So I'm going to talk to you about one framework. There are many different frameworks, but some are more complex and require more explanation. I decided to show you this one because it's easier, it's very clear, and I find it's very useful when designing lessons, for example, for virtual reality. So we have four so this is by Won et al. From 2023, and they adapted it from another framework for gaming. And it has 4 factors, 4 different types of immersion. The first one is sensory immersion. This is what we just talked about. If I go back here. So it's the sounds and graphics and haptic feedback and all the senses and so on. So for example, to give you a concrete example, let's say you're in virtual reality with your avatar and you grab a ball and you drop it. You expect it to bounce, right? Because that's what it does in your physical world. If it didn't bounce, you wouldn't feel immersed because it's unrealistic. So realism is important. The same if the proportions, for example, between people and houses and furniture and so on, they have to be realistic as we would expect them. Then we have actional research, my mind went to action research, actional immersion. This is about interactivity, how intuitive the interactions in virtual reality are. For example, that when you move your physical body, that your avatar moves the same way. And that when you, for example, imagine there is a table in VR and on the table there is a remote control and opposite you there is a TV set. So you would expect that you can grab the control, click on it, and then the TV would come on, right? So these kinds of things that you would expect to happen, if they happen, it feels immersive. But so actional has also to do with the technology and the design. And then we have narrative immersion. This has a bit to do with storytelling, if you want. And this is about the overall story, if you want, where the lesson, in which a lesson is embedded, and also the environment, the context in which you find yourself, and also activities that are natural in that environment, and what's the other word I'm looking for? Meaningful tasks, So to give you a concrete example, let's say you want to practice ordering food. So in the physical classroom or on Zoom, it's difficult because students have to imagine everything. You would tell them, for example, look, this is your spoon, and this is your plate, and now imagine you're eating, and this is pizza, if you didn't know. So you would be in an environment that is related to the role play or to the activity you want your students to do. it could be a city environment if they have to talk about different buildings or giving directions. So the context is important, and the roles and what you do, that it has to all fit together. So the better you do this, the higher the narrative immersion is. And finally, we have social immersion. Social immersion has to do with social interactions. So that is your peers, and that is the teacher. So if the learner is together with the teacher and their peers, and they help and support the learning, that also increases immersion. And the interaction with others, communicating, collaborating with others. So this is called social immersion. So basically, when you have all of these elements, if they are all high, you have the highest level of immersion. But before, okay, I'll show you in a moment another slide. Before I move on, though, if you look at especially the last two, but also the others, these are also factors that contribute to good language teaching, right? When we plan lessons where you have social interaction, good storytelling, interactivity, also, and so on, then makes also for good language learning. So you can see that there is a huge overlap between features of VR and the immersion factors and good language learning. Oops. Now, okay, I think.
Nergiz, just pause for a second. Your internet is lagging.
Okay.
Okay, I think it's coming back. There we go.
Yeah.
No, we still can't hear you very well. Just hang on while. Oh. Hang on. I know. I just what I'm going to do is going to switch the camera off just to see if it gives me a bit more bandwidth with it. We might have lost it completely. Hang on.
Okay.
This happens, folks.
Yep. As we know, as teachers, when
she's
we've
gone.
Got technological issues.
So she's dropped out the room, which is actually a good thing because it means that she can get back in.
And reconnect. While we're waiting for Nergiz to reconnect in the chat box, yeah, let's see. What are we thinking about these virtual reality ideas so far?
Just to reassure people, Charlotte, can you turn your camera on?
Of course,
I'll move this to camera and I'll move it back when she comes back, so people don't worry about the fact that there's no thing on there. Hopefully she'll come back soon. We have a team already trying to get her back in the room with it. So what happens? We all know these days what happens when the internet drops out. Have you used VR? I've got loads of. I've got loads of those boxes down, little cardboard boxes down there.
I put a VR headset on myself once, and like a lot of people in the chat box, I think my word for that was disorienting.
Yeah.
It made me feel quite dizzy. I don't think I was particularly a fan, and I've never used it with my students. What about you?
I've used it with my students, yeah, quite a bit with it, because obviously these things are great with VR.
Have you got those cardboard ones?
Yeah, so I've got my students to do it, and it's good for like. I haven't used it for a while, but because I don't teach English per se anymore, I teach other stuff.
Academic writing skills.
Yeah, rather than like English lessons. But the direction lesson where you can actually put them on Google Maps and people could walk through the maps and those kind of things was really interesting. Hi, folks. If you're worried what's happening, we've lost the speaker. We're we're just hopefully getting her back at in the moment. So until then, I'm afraid you're stuck with Charlotte and I filling the space. We will catch it when she comes back.
As Abdul has said in the chat box, looks like technology decided to virtually take a break.
Somebody else, I think I can't remember who, I didn't catch the name, but somebody said, "Oh, she's gone off to a virtual reality planet or something." I really want it. It is funny. So yeah, I have used it, and obviously I have a long involvement with ITEFL's Learning Technology SIG. So we've done events with the big sets and stuff. She's back in the room, folks. So Nergiz, welcome back. When you're ready, hopefully switch on your mic and camera. Let's have a look. Internet speed's about the same, but hopefully it'll last. I can see there we go.
She's coming.
She's off stage at the moment. That's odd because she's on stage, off stage. I will see if I can do something about that.
Sean to the rescue. This is why we have Sean around. I mean, not only for his phenomenal language teaching skills, but his ability to fix technical problems that I just can't.
Okay, so she's struggling a little bit. Let me move. Let's see if I can turn my camera from here. You'll hear me muttering to myself because that's what I do, folks, as I'm trying to fix problems.
Sean has to make thinking noises.
Yes, there we go. I think I've got it back. There we go. Okay.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
We can, yeah. Hi, you're right.
Hi.
So you dropped out kind of at the beginning. You were halfway through that slide, I think. Audience, you were paying attention. At which point did she drop out? So you started to lag for a while. That's when I jumped in, and then people wouldn't be able to hear you. So maybe just reset to about 10 minutes to go.
So
around then.
So so basically, the first two, sensory immersion, and so these are the 4 factors of immersion. And sensory and actional immersion are more technological, and narrative and social are more pedagogical or psychological, if you want. And altogether, if you had, that would give you the highest level of immersion, right? And then I was saying that if you look at these carefully, and let me just get to my notes also here, you will find that these are also factors that make good language learning or teaching. Yeah, you have social interaction, storytelling, meaningful tasks, and realistic interactions. So to sum up, basically, if you design your lesson thoughtfully using social and narrative immersion and trying to get that as high as possible, you can compensate for the lack of technical immersion. That means sensory and actional immersion. Yes, some are saying not. We'll come to that maybe in the question. So now I want to in the next section talk a little bit about why we should VR. So now that we have established that actually you can use VR in your classes even if you don't have a headset, so you're now, hopefully I have you now at a place where you'd be interested in learning more about why you should use it. Yeah, normally we might start a presentation with the benefits of VR, but I wanted you to first understand that it is actually relevant for most of you if you don't think of it just as VR headset. So I will keep this very short. And I've summarized it, so this could be a whole book. So I condensed it into one slide. A couple of benefits. One is it's contextualized learning, as I talked earlier about. I've given you examples which you hopefully heard. Yeah, that if you're in a restaurant, when talking about restaurant language, or in an airport, if you want to talk about how to check in the airport language, it's contextualized. There are opportunities for natural language use. You can interact with objects, with the environment, with other people. You can bring distant places and people closer. sometimes students can't relate to what they see in course books, but if they can experience the place as if they are there, or interact closer with what they see, it can bring that closer. It's also, it allows us to experience situations more easily and safely. You can travel easily to different places, go on field trips, and if you are in a zoo with the lions, nothing can happen unless you lose the internet. That's the biggest danger, perhaps, or dizziness if you're in a VR headset. You can, it's experiential and active learning. You do things, actually, you visit places, you interact with others. And so it's not just watching or looking at images, but really creating memories alone or together with others. And this, of course, helps us remember much better than if we are always in the classroom or always on Zoom with the same squares. You can do virtual exchanges, meeting students, classes from other countries, and collaborating together in a virtual environment if it's a multi-user social VR experience. And VR also helps reduce language anxiety. So all of this helps us or helps learners connect more to the people and places. I just said that. They're engaged emotionally, which is important for learning, and they can improve their language skills, but also their intercultural communication skills if they meet others through VR. And research also indicates that the output volume is higher. So students in VR speak more. And not only that, usually the language they use in VR is also more accurate. And in one study, actually, which I found or still find fascinating, is that high school students in Spain who were in VR, in the classroom, they would use A2, B1 level language, which they were at, but in virtual reality, they would actually use B2 level language. And of course, this doesn't happen magically because of VR, but as you know, we have an active and passive knowledge of language. So VR can activate the passive knowledge because now they have a reason to talk. It's not just class, it's not just a lesson, it's an experience they are in. They can interact with people, with objects, they can play games. And that helps them activate the language they learned, and they remember what they've learned longer. So these are a couple of the benefits. And I'm glad some people are summarizing what I said earlier. Thank you. I want to finish this off with some practical examples, if the internet allows me to. So I hope you will be able to try out some of these. And all of these, I will mention 4 examples, can be experienced on different devices. So you don't need a VR headset. So you can actually try them out. First, some of you might have experience with this, especially with the Google Cardboard. You can watch 360-degree videos that you can find on video platforms. If you have access to YouTube, you can search on YouTube. If not, you can also find them on other platforms, like in China, they have, for example, other platforms. And I looked there and you can find them there as well. So you can use search for virtual reality on YouTube or 360 degrees. And there is a channel which has lots of different videos that you can choose, just like you would any other video for your lessons. Or instead of an image in your book, you might find related 300-degree videos or 300-degree images to show to your students. And if you have children, it's really better if they don't have long VR sessions, but with a simple VR viewer, they can view short immersive videos. So that helps them to travel to real or virtual locations, experience events in immersive format. And there are also classes where they actually create their own videos. So it requires a special camera, but they're not that expensive. You could buy one for the school, and then students can create their own 360-degree videos and show them to others. So that's the first one. And then one of my favorite experiences is Pollinator Park. This was an EU project, and it's a wonderful experience. The environment is beautiful. I wish I could share more pictures with you. I've just chosen this one, but it's about bees, about nature, and its setting, which I like as a futurist also. It's set in the future, and students can go through this experience. And there are different stations where you can do different things and get more information about pollination and bees and so on. And but it doesn't finish there. It's wonderful for integrated skills lessons, because this whilst going through these different stations, you collect bits of a story, or basically it's a diary of the character, I think her name is Beatrice. So Beatrice has become a scientist, but when she was growing up, she kept a diary. And so you collect the different bits of the diary, and then you can read the diary entries, and you can use that for all kinds of language exercises. So VR lesson doesn't mean that you have to spend the whole time in VR. It can only be part of the lesson, and you can extend it into project work as well. There are lots of materials available on the website, and it's available in multiple languages. So check this out when you have time. Then there are VR platforms where you don't even have to install anything, no downloads, no installation. You just open your internet browser and you go to the website, and you can enter the virtual world. And inviting others to your virtual world requires just sharing an internet link, and they put it in the browser and they join you in the space that you are in. And there you can conduct role play activities. For example, here we are in the city center, so it could be about vocabulary, but also giving directions and things like that. There you can see there are some boards in different places, whether you can use as a whiteboard or display PDF documents, watch a YouTube video together, and lots of other options. So this on the picture is Frame VR. It's very educator and student friendly, but there are many others that you can look at. And this is another platform similar to Frame VR, just through your browser. And I wish I could show you this live, but I'm not going to dare do that now with my internet today. Now, if you do have a VR headset, but you don't want to use any VR in your classroom, or even without a headset, let's say you could just have VR experiences in your library devices, computer or VR headset, and students could use that for self-paced learning. That's possible. And what you could also do is talk with your students about VR experiences, because millions of young people are in virtual reality, like on platforms like Roblox, Fortnite, and many others, VR chat. So you might want to talk with them about the risks and benefits, but also share with them some tips on how they can use that for language learning and not just playing. So basically, what I want you to take home from this is that we don't need to focus on the technology. We can focus on the pedagogy and the students' needs instead of the technology. And just briefly, for example, you might have a situation where you use the VR headset for role plays to make them maybe more interactive. But if they want to build something, or if it's just a discussion and you want to sit together in an immersive room, you don't need the headset. You can just use the computer or tablets. So that's one thing, for different activities, different devices. But you might also have students with different needs. So some might benefit from using the headset, others might benefit from using the computer where they have a keyboard instead, or a tablet where they can just hold the tablet and move around and interact with it. So you can combine. Once you know that learners are learning no matter which device, and how you can design your lessons with the 4 factors to increase immersion, you're much more flexible. So with this, that brings me to the end of my talk.
Thank you so much, Nergiz. And if you want to, we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions, but for the audience, Nergiz has kindly offered to write a blog post for her blog with some of your questions afterwards. So if she doesn't get to them today, she may well. But if you'd like to have a quick look in the Q&A tab, those questions are waiting for you.
Okay, how much time do I have?
Oh, you've probably got time for 1 or 2, as long as the answers are fairly
short.
succinct.
Okay. Can you suggest good VR platforms? I think I've done that. There are some specific ones for language learning also. For example, Immerse Me, Noun Town. These are just but there are a couple of more that are specifically for language learning. But you don't need specific platforms for language learning only. You can use just VR platforms like the ones I mentioned. Funding for all the equipment in Italy. Yes, we had actually projects in the past with Italian researcher. Meta has, and maybe other companies as well, often fund VR headsets, if that's what you're asking for. Actually, I've even just read the EU Commission is offering funding for VR projects at the moment, so there are options. I don't know about anything specific about VR headsets right now, but they are available sometimes. Any apps to use VR in my class? I just mentioned some. Actually, I meant direct links to VR platforms. Well, if you'll find them if you use the names that I just mentioned, and they were also on the links. I mentioned the names, I think, and the links. But if you connect with me, I can share with you more links. And on my website, actually, I have a page with some platforms listed also, and with the links, if that helps. Research on VR, there's a lot of research. Again, you will find some on my website. There's a lot in the book, which I didn't want to make this about research, but what I mentioned is actually research-based, all the benefits and also all the different factors and so on.
Excellent. And just in case, would you like to, I can see you've got it on screen, nergizkern.com. Is that
it's
also
easy,
where people reach your blog?
Exactly. That's my website. So you can reach me there. You can find me also on LinkedIn. But I think the easiest is really just on my website. And if you want to download the extract, you'll find again.
Lovely. Nergiz, thank you so much, and wonderful modelling of your calm nature due to technical issues. I'm sure that has given the teachers a huge amount of confidence for when they face their own.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us in the most unexpected moments. We have to live with that.
Absolutely. So, right. Lots of love coming through in the chat box for you.
Thank you. Very briefly, if anyone tries out any of the platforms I mentioned or anything else in VR, I would love to hear about it too.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nergiz. I will let you pop your camera and your mic off. We hope to see you again some next EdTech.